We begin tonight with what could fairly be judged as a distraction from the president's health care message last night. But it is a distraction that's also turning out to be a very clarifying look at American politics. The South Carolina Republican Congressman Joe Wilson, who yelled, "You lie," at the president in the middle of his address to Congress last night, today found himself on the receiving end of support and congratulations for that outburst. While many of his Republican colleagues in Congress expressed their disapproval of what Congressman Wilson did, a steady stream of well-wishers descended upon the congressman's office in D.C. today to say quite the opposite. Among them were radical anti-abortion activist Randall Terry and members of the Montgomery, Alabama Tea Party Patriots. Congressman Wilson also found a wealth of support from conservative outposts on the online machine. Today, the conservative website Palmetto Scoop began giving away "I'm with Joe Wilson" t-shirts. The Red State blog dubbed Congressman Wilson, quote, "a great American hero," urging its readers to open our wallets for Joe. For his part, Congressman Wilson released a YouTube video tonight, incredibly trying to raise money off his newfound notoriety, saying, "I will not be muzzled," and railing against, quote, "the liberals who want to give health care to illegals." The groups that have come to Congressman Wilson's defense over the past 24 hours, that have even literally come to his office to show their support, can help us understand the state of American politics right now, at least the state of Republican politics right now, the extent to which the Republican Party has integrated itself with its own fringe extremes. Joe Wilson is not a well-known congressman, and he's not a well-known congressman for a reason. He's not considered to be an extremist in his party. He's considered to be a typical backbench Republican congressman. And right now, in American politics today, being a typical backbench Republican member of Congress means doing things like opening the doors of your congressional office to participants in the 9/12 March on Washington, which Congressman Joe Wilson is planning to do this Saturday. The 9/12 March on Washington is essentially a national tea party, a big organized, ostensibly grassroots march on the nation's capital. If you go to their website, you'll see that, quote, "We've had enough of the out-of-control spending. We are gathering on 9/12/2009 to deliver our message in person that we've had enough." The "we" here is actually the Republican-run corporate-funded organization called FreedomWorks. FreedomWorks is charging some groups tens of thousands of dollars to take part in this grassroots event. Today, during the kickoff event for this whole weekend of 9/12 things, the head of FreedomWorks, former Republican House Majority Leader Dick Armey, came to Congressman Joe Wilson's defense, arguing that we should, quote, "cut Mr. Wilson a little slack." The crowd of several hundred people who were listening to Mr. Armey at that rally reportedly shouted, "You lie! You lie!" Not because they thought Dick Armey was lying, but because they liked that Congressman Joe Wilson yelled that last night at the president in the middle of his address to Congress. If you look at the 9/12 March website, you can see the organizations who are sponsoring the event. One group that's listed as a bronze co-sponsor of the event is called the National Association of Rural Landowners, or NARLO. If you surf on over to the NARLO website, turns out that they're calling for violent revolution. They're calling for the overthrow of the United States government. They're calling for the overthrow of the United States government. The government and the media are both described as, quote, "our enemy within. Our enemy within. Unless we come together in a cohesive fighting unit, our freedoms and liberties shall fade into the dark chasm of socialism and radical environmentalism." Included on the website of this group, that again is a bronze sponsor of the 9/12 March on Saturday, is an ominous warning that, quote, "a day of reckoning is at hand." They also encourage people who are visitors to their website to buy guns now. They also have posted a video that forecasts massive protests, followed by the rapid secession of states, followed by a new civil war. Congressman Joe "You Lie" Wilson is opening his congressional office to these nice folks for the 9/12 March. Saturday is an ominous warning that, quote, a day of reckoning is at hand. They also encourage people who are visitors to their website to buy guns now. They also have posted a video that forecasts massive protests, followed by the rapid secession of states, followed by a new civil war. Congressman Joe "You Lie" Wilson is opening his congressional office to these nice folks for the 9/12 march. It doesn't make sense anymore to talk about the relationship between the extreme fringe of the conservative movement and the modern Republican Party, because you can only discern a relationship between two things if you can tell those two things apart. About half an hour ago, the top-ranking Republican in the House of Representatives, not some anonymous backbencher nobody had ever heard of until he had a tantrum on television, the top-ranking Republican in the House of Representatives, the Minority Leader, John Boehner, appeared on a webcast organized by the lobbying arm of the Family Research Council. This is an anti-health reform webcast. It features the top Republican in the House of Representatives, and it is hosted by a group that describes health reform as, quote, Obama's tax and death power grab, which will, quote, produce a moral disaster and enable the Washington liberals to use your taxes to turn their entire anti-life agenda from unrestricted abortion on demand to euthanasia into national health care policy. Getting called a liar was a distraction from President Obama's speech on health care last night. It created a circus-like spectacle last night and, frankly, all day today. And it was also a clarifying moment about who the opposition is right now for the president and for Democrats, and maybe for some moderate Republicans. Joining us now is former Republican Senator Lincoln Chafee of Rhode Island. He left the Republican Party. He's now an independent. He's exploring a possible run for governor in the great state of Rhode Island. Senator Chafee, thanks very much for joining us tonight.
My pleasure, Rachel.
Let me ask you about the premise here of the introduction that I just did. Do you agree that the fringe of the conservative movement has really been invited into the mainstream of your former party?
Absolutely. And we certainly saw it with the vice presidential pick with Sarah Palin. It's that same population within the party that revels in driving out moderates such as myself, more mainstream Republicans. And the ramifications, of course, are that the Republican Party is in an ever-shrinking minority. And you mentioned Minority Leader John Boehner. And that's the problem with this strategy, if you will, by the Republican Party. They're going to keep losing seats. They're down to 40 in the Senate at 60-40. And although the money's pouring in to Mr. Wilson, Congressman Wilson, around the country in states such as Rhode Island, Minnesota, Oregon, people are embarrassed and appalled by this behavior. And that causes causes any Republicans that are left to have a harder time winning. So it's the ever-shrinking Republican Party.